Oh, hello. I'm Ranger William from the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail. You caught me this morning out here on my front porch doing a little bit of reading about my choice for the next question being answered by the Southern Campaign of the American Revolution Parks. That question is, who is the most underrated Patriot leader of the backcountry? And you've actually heard of my choice. If you've ever heard of Cleveland, Tennessee, Cleveland, Georgia, or Cleveland County, North Carolina. That's right, Benjamin Cleveland is going to be my option. Now, Benjamin Cleveland, he's most famous probably for his role on the Overmountain Victory Trail and the Kings Mountain campaign. It was Benjamin Cleveland who led around 400 men from the Yadkin Valley and joined the Mountaineers at Quaker Meadows on September 30th, 1780, joined in the pursuit of Patrick Ferguson. And he stayed with them all the way through Gilberttown, Cowpens, to the Battle of Kings Mountain itself, where Cleveland was described as being right there with his men in the front lines, running and shooting, but also calling out to his men one of his cries of "Yonder is your enemy and the enemy of all mankind." So pretty strong words there. Now, Lyman Draper, in his book Kings Mountain and Its Heroes, he also talks about a moment where some of Cleveland's guys found themselves in the wrong location, and they quickly ran back, remounted their horses, and he says, rode like so many fox hunters at an almost breakneck speed through rough woods and brambles, leaping branches and crossing ridges without a proper guide who had a personal knowledge of the country, but soon fell upon the enemy. So some pretty skilled horsemen that Cleveland is leading with him. But Cleveland's role in the Revolution goes far beyond Kings Mountain, because his kind of iron grip on Wilkes County, North Carolina, there in the Piedmont, the central region of North Carolina, this created an island of Patriot resistance, stopping any attempted Loyalist gatherings. So who was Cleveland and how was he so effective at doing this? So a little bit of background about him. He's born in Virginia to English parents on May 26, 1738. He's actually born on a little stream called Bull Run Creek, going to be the site of a major Civil War battle later on. But Cleveland is described as being a typical kind of rowdy frontier youth. They don't go into a lot of details about how wild he was, but they do say that in his prime he was about 6 feet tall and finely proportioned. And now when he married Mary Graves in 1769, it said that she tamed his ways. So however wild he may have been, I guess he toned down a little bit with marriage. But that same year, 1769, possibly because of marrying Mary Graves, Cleveland decides to pull up stakes and head down and become a North Carolinian. So in 1769, Cleveland moves down to the Yadkin River Valley. He establishes a plantation that he's going to name the Roundabout due to its position in a river bend. And this is going to be about 15 miles away from current Wilkesboro, North Carolina. But that nickname Roundabout is not only going to be applied to his home, but to him as well. He was described as being a pretty big guy, somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 pounds, but still finely proportioned. Now, just because he got married and it said that she tamed his ways, it doesn't mean that his taste for adventure is extinguished, because he accompanies one of his neighbors on a hunting trip in 1772, and that neighbor just happened to be Daniel Boone. And they head over into the territory claimed by the Cherokee Nation, where they are, after a successful hunt, they're hit by some pretty bad luck, and they're caught by a Cherokee hunting party. The men are allowed to go home, but their horses, the pelts and deerskins they've taken, their hunting weapons, their supplies are all confiscated by those Cherokee hunters. One account of their journey home actually says that they had to eat their hunting dogs just to survive their travels back to North Carolina. Now, another little add-on to this story says that Cleveland later went back into the Cherokee Nation, talked with some Cherokee men, and was able to arrange getting his horses back. It doesn't say if he just talked for them back or he stole them back, but he did end up going back and at least trying. And by the time of the Revolution, Cleveland has grown some roots. He's pretty attached to his new North Carolina home. And so he's going to be offered an officer's commission in the 2nd North Carolina Continental Regiment when the Revolution was beginning, and he turns it down. He's preferring to stay behind and defend his home with the militia of what was then Surrey County, then march off and fight the British elsewhere. And so with the militia, he takes part in military adventures from one end of the state to the other. He's going to be riding to the east to scatter the Scottish Loyalists in the Cross Creek area. That's over in coastal North Carolina, kind of the Fayetteville, Wilmington area. But he's also going to be patrolling against Cherokee warriors in Washington County, North Carolina. That's now eastern Tennessee. So from one end to the other, Cleveland and his men are doing their part to support the Patriot cause wherever it is. Now, in 1778, he's a major advocate for the creation of Wilkes County from Surrey County. And he's going to be a big leader of this movement. And they named the county after John Wilkes, who, believe it or not, these patriots are naming their new county after a member of Parliament. The reason for this is that John Wilkes was a friend of the revolutionary cause, known for speaking out in Parliament in favor of the Americans. So they saw to honor him with naming their new county. Now, once the new county is created, they need leadership. Benjamin Cleveland, he is made kind of like a magistrate, the head of justices for the new county, and also the colonel of the militia. So it's in these positions, both military and political, that Cleveland is going to earn a new nickname, the Terror of the Tories. The men in Cleveland's regiment are going to be nicknamed Cleveland's Bulldogs for how aggressively they pursue loyalists all across North Carolina. But to those loyalists, these men will be known as Cleveland's Devils. One main issue that plagues Cleveland's efforts in controlling his region is the ability of skilled loyalist leaders to evade capture, escape from the crude frontier prisons, and be rescued by other groups of loyalists while they're awaiting a nice, proper legal trial. And this will cause Cleveland to take a very heavy-handed approach with frontier justice. In one account recorded by Lyman Draper, Cleveland actually hears that there's 2 noted loyalists being held in a nearby prison. So rather than wait for the trial to happen when it was likely that the loyalists would have escaped, he decides to go over to the prison with his men, and they pass immediate sentence rather than take the chances and wait for the judge to arrive in time. So they take the 2 men out of jail, they hang one of them from an oak tree, and Cleveland gives the other man the choice, pointing to his recently executed friend to either hang with him as well or cut off his own ears and flee the colony. The loyalist took the latter option and was never seen around that area again. The reputation of Cleveland and his men, it's going to be spread far and wide. In fact, when Patrick Ferguson issues out a kind of a call to arms to local loyalists to come and join his camp on October 1st, 1780, during his retreat to Kings Mountain, he includes the names of some of the leaders that are coming after them. He says McDowell, Hampton, Shelby, and Cleveland are at their head so that you know what you have to depend upon. He's using Cleveland's name to tell the loyalists, hey, this guy means business and he's coming for you. In another part of that same proclamation, Ferguson refers to a report where some of Cleveland's men attacked an unarmed group of loyalists in a tavern after they had spent the evening drinking with them, and then they just jumped on the guys, killing some and leaving others for dead. But this aggression and this worry about loyalist prisoners escaping is going to come up again in the aftermath of Kings Mountain, when a trial is ordered for 36 loyalist prisoners at Biggerstaff's plantation during the night of October 14th. Cleveland was there and is described as being more active and determined than any other officer in handing out sentences, resulting in 9 of those condemned being hanged right there that night. Now, when the remaining loyalist prisoners were held at the Moravian towns from late October to late November 1780, Cleveland is temporarily placed in command of that group, and he's noted in a couple of loyalist journals for his cruel and aggressive behavior. towards the prisoners. In one instance, he decides to execute 2 loyalist officers because they had previously been Patriot militiamen. So these men are viewed as traitors and criminals. However, they're able to escape before their execution. Now, in another execution, Benjamin Cleveland captures an infamous loyalist leader in his region, a man named Bill Riddle. And Bill Riddle had actually captured Cleveland in April of 1781 and was trying to travel down to British lines using Cleveland to write them fake passes through Patriot territory. And when Cleveland is able to capture Bill and some of his men, he hangs them from a tree located in what's now Wilkesboro, North Carolina. And this tree is known to history as the Tory oak. And a piece of this original tree is actually on display in the Wilkes County Museum. And a little side note, Lyman Draper records that Cleveland made Bill Riddle's wife watch the execution. Now, this isn't just some kind of extremely cruel measure. It's noted that she was not an innocent bystander, but Bill Riddle's wife rode with her husband alongside on all of his raids and his escapes. So she was just as guilty as anyone else of his gang. So this brutality in crushing the loyalist fighting ability and the fighting spirit, this wasn't just pointless. This wasn't for just the local area's benefit, but it was recognized that Cleveland's county was in the direct path between the Southern British Army under Lord Cornwallis and the Patriot lead mines in Southern Virginia. The summer prior to the whole Kings Mountain campaign happening, William Campbell had actually come down into Cleveland's territory, joined up with him, and they had been riding all around central North Carolina that August, scattering any gatherings of Tories who were reported to be planning a raid and an attack against those lead mines, a crucial supply source for the Continental Army. In spring of 1781, when Nathaniel Greene and his retreating Continental Army are making their way through North Carolina to the Virginia border, they're being pursued by Lord Cornwallis. And it's Ben Cleveland and his men who join up with the American Army and help serve as a buffer force, a rear guard, and shield the retreating Americans from any scouts and pursuing troops from the British. Cleveland and his men helped that. And Cornwallis is denied a lot of local support because of the intimidation, the fear that Cleveland spreads. So what happens to the terror of the Tories, to Old Roundabout? After the war, Benjamin Cleveland sadly loses his land in North Carolina to a better claim. This isn't unheard of happening on the frontier. All it means is that when someone was able to examine the paperwork between Cleveland's land grant and someone else's, Cleveland's survey and this competing claim, it's found that this other claim possibly predated Cleveland, so they had first dibs, or maybe Cleveland's survey was never done or wasn't done efficiently, but the other claim had better paperwork, had better details, so it won out. So after losing the legal battle for his home, Cleveland moved down to the newly opened territory in western South Carolina, captured from the Cherokee Indians during the Revolution, in what's now kind of far upper western South Carolina. Pension applications from some of Cleveland's men actually show that they followed their leader and resettled down in South Carolina nearby him. And on October 15th, 1806, Benjamin Cleveland died of heart dropsy at his home in Oconee County, South Carolina. So Benjamin Cleveland was more than just one of the officers at Kings Mountain. His life on the frontier, his rise to become a wealthy planter, then the loss of his land, this kind of makes him a great example of the struggles of the backcountry farmer. And his involvement in the partisan fighting that ripped North Carolina apart was critical in aiding the Patriot cause and denying the British their much-needed local supporters. But if you travel too far from the Wilkesboro area and the Yadkin River Valley, you won't really hear a lot about Ben Cleveland, the terror of the Tories, and all of the exploits of his, how effective he was at crushing loyalism and leading the Patriot cause in central North Carolina. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Benjamin Cleveland, and I hope you see why he's my choice for being the most underrated Patriot leader of the backcountry. Thanks for watching.